Chapter 4, Plan and Profile Sheet Geometry. In this chapter, we're going to create a plan file. In that plan file, we're going to place some elements that we're going to target with our corridor. And then later on in the chapter, we're going to create a profile drawing as well and place our profile existing and proposed in that drawing. And the reason we're doing that is because we're still using the old native plan and profile sheet tool, and typically the way we do this at MoDOT is we plot our plan and profile, or we plot our profile with the old DNC Manager tool. So in the exercise, we're going to be we're going to be doing the group exercise on page 4-7. And in the first step, it says to open up the civil geometry file, which I've already done. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file called plan_J2P0200.dgn. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to do a file new. We're going to do no wizard if you get this dialog. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my source file. And typically a plan file will be just a 2D file. And so I'm going to go on up to CAD standards. We're going to go down to seed files. We're going to go down to design English. And then about 2/3 of the way down is the iProject 2D Power GEOPAK. We're going to open that as read only. Then we're going to go ahead and name this file. Again, it's going to be plan_J2P0200.dgn. Again, what you want to do is you want to type it once and then copy it down to the file name, because both those have to be identical. And what I do sometimes is I put in whether or not this was a 2D file or not. Okay. So once you have that typed in just like so, we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit OK to create this. Now some people like to check their folder to make sure it's not going to the wrong folder location, and I'll go ahead and do that, and I've got it in the right location. I'm under Randolph J2P0200. We're in the Data 4 folder because we're in Chapter 4. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK to create this file. Again, it's just creating a blank file. We're going to go ahead and check in the previous civil geometry file. And once it's done getting created, I'm going to go ahead and reference in two files. We just got done creating our civil geometry for the Road 1 alignment, and we're going to need that in this file. And then we're also going to bring in our terrain model. We also have our terrain model all created. So I'm going to go up to the reference dialog. I'm going to go do a tools attach. I'm going to go down to where our files are located. We're under district CAD. We're under design. We're all the way down in the Randolph folder, J2P0200. And again, we're in Data 4, and we're going to reference in the civil geometry and the terrain file, which that terrain file has our existing ground terrain or surface. So we're going to hit OK and bring those two files in. And if I do a fit view, you should see the two files out there. Okay. Now what we're doing in this exercise is we're creating geometry for our right passing lane, and it's going to be a proposed edge of pavement line that we're going to be placing. And so in the previous chapter in civil geometry, we were using the civil accudraw. So if you still have that running, go ahead and shut that down, so we're not using civil accudraw. And we're going to go up to the feature definition bar here, and I'm going to drag mine out just because I like to see it out here on the screen. And you can see my civil accudraw is turned off. I've just got to turn that toggle off there. And in our feature definition toggle bar, we're going to set this to an edge of pavement new. And so we're going to go down, drill down into it. It's going to be under design, should be under design standards, roadway, and if you go down a little ways, you should be able to see EOP new. Okay. Once you have EOP new selected, we're going to go ahead and activate the feature definition toggle bar, and this will typically what this will do is it will use this feature definition in all the other tools that you go into. Okay. Next, we're going to go over to our task, and we're under the civil tools, and then we're going to go down to our horizontal geometry, and we want to use a tool called single offset partial. Underneath the single offset entire element, if we just left click and hold, we're going to go down to the single offset partial. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it brings up the following dialog box. It says in step 10, when prompted, locate the element, which is our Road 1 exercise. And so we're going to come over our Road 1 alignment. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. The offset will be 24 to the right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to lock in the offset at 24. And that's going to be at the beginning. And we're going to lock at the start. So we're going to turn on the lock to start because that's where we want it to start it. And then we're going to go down to an end distance of 10 plus 0, 0. And so the end distance is going to be 10 plus 0, 0. We're going to enter that. And so now what we can do is we can just literally click, left click to accept all the things that we've typed in. And we're going to not mirror this because we're just going to do the widening area on one side only. So what we have is a edge of pavement line that's 24 foot over from station 0 down to station 10. And then we're going to start transitioning that offset from 24 down to 12 all the way to the end of the alignment. And so we're going to move on. And the next tool that we're going to do is we're going to need the variable offset taper, and this is step 15. And so if we go back to our horizontal geometry tools in the second last row, and if we hold down on the offset tool that we just used, we're going to go down to the variable offset taper now. Okay. First thing we're going to do in the dialog box, we're going to type in a start and ending offset of 24 and 12. So the start offset is going to be 24. The end offset is going to be 12. Then in the same dialog, the start and ending station is going to be 10, and then lock to the end. So for the start distance, it's going to be 10 plus 0, 0. And then the end distance, we don't need to type in because we're just going to lock it to the end. Okay. And so now we just need to come out and locate the element. And our start offset is going to be 24. Our end offset is going to be 12. We are not going to mirror this. And once you walk through these steps, you should get a variable offset line. And so if we look at this line, you can see our start is 24 at 10, and our end is 12 at 35. So if you made a mistake, you could just literally adjust the values that you have out on the screen here. Okay. Again, the reason why we're placing this line out in this file is because we're going to reference this file into our corridors file eventually, and we're going to target this edge of pavement. And we're going to target it with a kind of a style constraint. And once we target that with a style constraint and then also make this a corridor reference, this edge of pavement line, the template should draw to that edge of pavement line. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to complex the proposed edge of pavement. And so we're going to come on over to our complex tool, which is complex by elements. It's the first icon in the second last row of the horizontal geometry tools. We're going to click on that, and it's going to ask us for locating the elements. And so what we're going to do is we're going to highlight both items and then accept the complex. Now you can do it manually or you can do it automatic, and I tend to like the automatic. So if your elements are within this max gap, it will automatically highlight the elements, and then you just have to accept them. And so for our name, we're just going to call it EOP new. And so we're going to come in here and we're going to left click on that. You can see that it highlights all the way down, and then we just need to accept it on the blank area. Now if I highlight on this line, instead of being 2 elements, it's going to be 1 element all the way through. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to place some right-of-way lines in this file. And again, since we're placing right-of-way lines in here, we can actually get those right-of-way lines to show up in our cross-section view if we reference this file into our corridors file. And so instead of putting the right-of-way lines in a corridors file, we're actually going to place them not in this plan file, but in a file called land boundary _J2P0200. So the next step is we're going to create a land boundary file. So we're going to do File New again, no wizard. Again, the seed file, we're going to set that to the iProject 2D Power GEOPAK, and again it's located under CAD standards, seed files, design English, and then we're going to go about 2/3 of the way down. Design English, yeah, and about 2/3 of the way down we're going to pick the iProject 2D again. We're going to open that as our seed file, and for the name it's going to be land _boundary _J2P0200.dgn. Again, once you type it once, you basically go in there and copy it and then paste it down in the file name area. Again, I like to put in my description that this was a 2D file. Okay. So once you have that set up just like so, we're going to go ahead and hit OK to that. And we're going to check in the plan file. Once this file is created, we're going to reference in our civil geometry file, our terrain file, just like we did with the plan file, but then we're also going to add in our plan file as well. So let's go to our reference dialog. We're going to do a Tools Attach. We're going to select civil geometry, we're going to select terrain and then the plan, and we're going to hit OK to that and just hit OK to each file being referenced in. So if I now do a fit view, you should see all my elements. Now that that's referenced in, we're going to go up to our horizontal or our feature definition toggle bar, and we're going to set this this right-of-way line to a right-of-way controlled access proposed. So we're going to go to the down arrow, we're going to go to design, we're going to go to design standards, we're going to slide down to right-of-way, and under right-of-way should be that right-of-way controlled access proposed. Right-of-way access, controlled access proposed. It's this one right here. We're going to make sure that this is the use active feature definition is toggled on, and we're going to go over to the complex by PI tool, which again is still under the horizontal geometry tools. It's this one right here, and we're going to use this tool to place this right-of-way line. And so when we do right-of-way lines, we don't really typically have radiuses in our right-of-way line, so we're going to leave our radius set to 0. We are going to go ahead and use Civil Accudraw to place the line out there accurately based on the chart that's on page 4-9. And so I'm going to go to my Civil Accudraw, and I'm going to do an option with the station offset tool. And so you can see that I've got my heads-up display on my cursor there, and it's asking for a station value, but the tool doesn't know what alignment I'm working with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the O button for origin, and then I'm going to go select my Road 1 alignment. And now once I select my Road 1 alignment, the Civil Accudraw tool now knows my stationing and offset. Okay. And so we're going to place a line on the left side of Road 1, and the very first station is 0 + 0, 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and get my focus in the station field, and I'm going to type in 0 + 0, 0, and I'm going to lock it in. And when I lock it in, you can see that when I move, that it's locked in on that beginning station. And then I'm going to type in the offset of -100, and again move my cursor, and you can see that it's locked in on that location there. I'm going to start my complex by PI line by just left clicking, and I'm going to go out and enter in my next station value. My station value is 7 + 53, 43, which is at the location of this point right here. if I wanted to, I could try to AccuSnap, but really what I want to do is I just want to type that in and then lock it in. So I'm going to type in 7 plus 53.43, lock it in. You can see it's locked in on that point there. And then for the offset, it's again going to be a negative 100. So I'm going to lock that in and then move my cursor. Once I'm happy with that location, I'm going to left click and I'm going to keep on drawing my right-of-way line. And so the next station value is going to be 10 plus 00. So I'm going to make sure my focus is in the station field. I'm going to type in 10 plus 00. For the offset, this one's going to be a negative 125. I'm going to enter that. And I move my cursor and you can see it jumps to the location, and then you just have to left click to place that line. Then I'm going to keep on moving on down. I'm going to go down to 15 plus 00. And this is at an offset of negative 150. Move my cursor, locks it in, and then I just left click to accept that location. Our next one is 20 plus 00 at a negative 150. And I'm going to move my cursor after I type the station 20, and then now I'm going to type in the negative 150, and then left click to accept that. So that's all we're doing, is we're just placing this right-of-way line all the way down the Road 1 corridor, and our next one is at 23 plus 62, which again is right at this PT location. So again, I'm just going to type it in, 23 plus 62.95. I move my cursor, that agrees with that stationing major tick mark there, and so I'm going to go ahead and type in the offset of negative 100, enter that in, left click, and then I'm going to finish it out by going all the way to the end, and I'm going to type in that 35 plus 10.08. Move my cursor, it agrees with the ending station there, and then I'm going to put in an offset of negative 100. And once that's in there, I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to right click to get out of the tool, and you can see that I've placed that right-of-way line. Again, if you need to, you can always click on this and adjust the values after the fact. So if once you start creating your corridor and you see that your fill slopes or ditches are going out past your proposed right-of-way line, you can always go back and revisit your proposed right-of-way line and adjust that line. Okay. Last thing we're going to do now is we're going to assign a profile to this right-of-way line. And the reason we want to do that is because when we reference this file into our corridors file, if this right-of-way line has a profile at the existing ground, it will draw the right-of-way line in your cross sections. Okay. And so typically where you want your right-of-way label to be is at the existing ground, and so that's why we're going to give it create an existing ground profile for this right-of-way line, and then name that right-of-way line, and then also make it active. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is we need to check and see if our terrain model is active, and right now ours is not, so I'm going to go ahead and make it active. When it becomes active, any horizontal linear element that you have will automatically get an existing ground profile. To show you this, I'm going to go ahead and open up the right-of-way lines profile model. I'm going to go down and do it in view number 8 here. I'm going to click in there, and you can see there's our existing ground for the right-of-way line. Now I still have my civil accudraw going, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off because I don't need all that information. And so what we need to do now is we just need to come into this existing right-of-way line, or sorry, existing profile of the right-of-way line, and we're going to go ahead and give it a name, and we're going to give it a name called existing. And then once it has a name, if you hover over it, you can see the profile, very top line there, called profile existing. And then all we're going to do now is, last thing we're going to do is make it an active profile. By giving that right-of-way line a name and making it active, what's going to happen is if you take this land boundary file and reference it into your corridors file, and if you cut a section, this right-of-way line will show up in your cross-section view at the elevation of your existing ground. So that's the main point of doing this part of the exercise. The first part, when we did the plan graphic, again we did that because if you reference in that plan file with that plan graphic into your corridors file, you can target that plan graphic and make your template widen out or get narrower based on that location of the plan graphic. The only other thing you need to do once you have that plan file referenced in, you have to select that edge of pavement line and make it a corridor reference. So with that, we are now finished with our first exercise in Chapter 4.